Hey, I'm David Craig. Welcome to The Most Excellent Way. It is the Christian solution to addiction problems. And with me, he's been on the show before. He's a group leader of Most Excellent Way, and it's Eddie Jones. Welcome to the show.
Hey,
You're brought
glad to be here.
I'm glad to have you here. A friend of yours as well. He's sitting between the two of us, and it's Tom Martin, who is also a believer in the Most Excellent Way of dealing with addiction problems.
Hello.
Hello, and thanks for joining us. And we also would like to hear from you. You can call us if you want, 432-7768 or 1-800-950-2522. And we'll be happy to get you on the show. Any question you have about any addiction you might have. And it is not just drugs and alcohol that Most Excellent Way can help with, but anything. And I don't know, all kinds of stuff really people get addicted to, pornography, different things. So give us a call if you're interested. There are meetings all over town. There's a great website, and it's tmewcf.org. That's the Most Excellent Way Christian Fellowship. And that's one way to remember it, tmewcf.org. And on that website, they actually have links to this program, so you can see some of the past programs that we've done here. But let's start out with you, Eddie, and you've revealed this in the past, but I usually like to find out what brought people to Most Excellent Way, and almost invariably it is an addiction to something. And my understanding from asking you out here on the show in the past is you were addicted to pretty much everything. And maybe you could give us just a little kind of discussion about the problems that you were having. Maybe be a little more specific this time about whatever drugs or alcohol or whatever you were doing, and what led you to Most Excellent Way.
Okay.
So what happened?
I was, as I said before, it was kind of just a way of life for me, and drug using and alcohol and marijuana, cocaine, popping pills, whatever was available, we did it.
How old were you when you first started?
I was going to say that. I was going to mention it. I was probably about, I was in my teens, and I grew up in Gulf Breeze, and we actually had a place that we called Sin City, and we got that from the name from one of the songs from AC/DC, and it was going into Sin City, and whenever we started to sing that song amongst friends, if we were around our parents or elders, they'd exactly know what we were talking about, and we were planning on going and getting our drug of choice and going down and partying and doing it up. And it was a lot of peer pressure. And the funny thing about it is I was probably one of the ones that was adding to the pressure. It was just it was the in thing. It was a cool thing to do, and that's what we did. And whatever became available, we'd do it. I remember we used to drink alcohol straight, just so that others that didn't like it straight wouldn't drink it, so that we'd have more alcohol for ourselves. It was kind of funny. If you aren't tough enough to drink it straight, then you can't have any, and or they just wouldn't drink it. So It was kind of funny how our own selfishness was basically destroying us, because eventually we got addicted to it.
Well, it was the in thing to do. It was fun at the time. I guess it must have been fun or you wouldn't have done it. It seemed like fun, or seemed like what fun was supposed to be, right? How did it go from there to being something that became a problem for you, or something that you wanted to change? I mean, where was that bridge, or how do you get to that point? Drinking more, enjoying it less?
It was just more social. It was just more. It went from out in the woods as a teenager, underage, and we'd get people to buy it for us. To when we got older, started doing the bar scene, hanging out in the bar, and meeting our friends at the bar, and then when the alcohol and the whatever we had was either ran out or wasn't working anymore. Then we start looking around the room for the dope dealer, who had the dope and what was going on at the time.
So the dope dealer is often found in the bar.
I'd say so. If you know people and you're in the thing, yeah, they're definitely there. You know, and anybody that hangs out at a bar long enough, if they're not seeing it, they're blind to it.
Okay, so the alcohol ran out, or it wasn't working enough. Now you're looking for the dope dealer, but you're doing the dope because you like that too, right?
Oh yeah.
True.
Yeah.
So how do you get from the point where you like it to where you want to do something to change that? I mean, what happened? What was the point in your life where you realized it wasn't fun anymore, or you wanted to do something about changing it?
I think it's more of a gradual thing. You know, it's you start seeing little signs and little instances in your life of where maybe you didn't pay a bill, or you had to be somewhere and you weren't there, or you of course the hangover. Everybody knows about the hangover. You get up and you're feeling terrible and you're saying, you know, I was telling Tom on the way over here, you know, we talked about those days when we'd wake up and we'd say, oh, I don't want to do this no more. And then by noon we're thinking about where we're going to go hang out. And
were you guys running buddies in the past?
Oh, no, unfortunately we weren't running buddies. No. But
Tom's disavowing any knowledge of your activities back then.
I've got enough.
I'm sure we would have ran together just fine if he would have been around at that.
Did you ever wake up somewhere and you had no idea where you were? Did that ever happen to you?
Oh yeah, wake up and you're like, wait a minute, did I drive home, or who's, you know, not so much, but I did have a lot of friends that I was kind of like a functioning. I would get on that plateau, and I could know what I could do and what I couldn't do. And if I knew I was going to do something that was going to really whack me out, I would stay close to friends that weren't doing it, so I could find my way home. I remember at one time on Pensacola Beach when the mushrooms was a big thing, and everybody was going out into the cow fields and getting the shrooms and the mushrooms, and they were popping acid on.
Somehow I missed that. I wasn't out in that field. And a lot of people were doing it.
You get paranoid when you do that stuff, you know, and you're afraid people are after you and somebody's going to hurt you. And we always stuck, like we'd hang real close. And of course, the beach can be a dangerous place anyway, so you needed that support of your. And it's funny, the very way that we supported each other. I know the girl was talking about this last time, and I can relate to that. Is the very way that the Christians support one another, and how we love and take care and want good for one another. In a sense, even in our little drug community, it's the same thing. You know, it's just maybe might be a little bit more selfish when one person's got more drug than the other, one person's trying to get there. But I can see some similarities there.
I'm trying to get to that point at which you wanted to change, though. So did you get to a point where you said, hey, this has got to end, I'm going to do something about it? Was there some point, or was it kind of a hazy sort of period where you were starting to decide, maybe this isn't for me?
Well, I actually had an accident, and I was hungover from the night before, and it just so happened the company that I was working for, of course now I'm self-employed, so I really, you know, I'm thankful that I don't have to worry about, you know, and a lot of people are afraid of coming on the show because they're afraid what their employees are going to think, where I don't have to worry about that. But at that time, I was working for a very well-known company in Pensacola, and I had this accident, and I believe it was because of my slow reflexes. I was kind of in a daze, and though I could have sworn that car came at me really quick for some, you know, I didn't want to take the blame, but when I look back now, I realized it was really my fault because I was just hungover from the night before. And it was so funny, my boss, the manager, the office manager had the district manager in the office at that time, and they called the state trooper, and the state trooper was at the scene, and the branch manager comes to the accident and everything, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm like, Lord, please just let me get through this. Don't let them know that I'm drunk or hungover or anything, you know. And I just can remember trying to keep my posure, and they never asked me if I was drunk or drinking or hungover or anything. So I got through, but when I looked back, I seen, you know, something was keeping me from not getting into trouble that I should have gotten into. And I believe it was God. I really believe it was God was helping me, that I didn't get in trouble. But
some people would say
made me
that,
want to look for Him.
Well, in your case, it did. Some people would say that God might want you to get in trouble so that you can realize you got a problem. A lot of times, people don't realize they have a problem with drugs or alcohol until law enforcement gets involved, until they lose something big, lose a job, lose a leg in that car accident because their reflexes weren't all that great, even though they thought that car was coming at them a little too quick. Lose a family, lose a house. You lose something, and then that's what brings a lot of people to it. But it looks like if you figured it out on your own.
Yeah, I think another big factor in was that my father died a year before I had my conversion. And I can remember going to his funeral, and I was just broken. And I started questioning myself. Well, what do I believe? Is there life after death? What if I do have a God and I do believe in God? What is His name? And see, before I never did. I always claimed that I knew Jesus and Jesus was my God, but I didn't have no relationship with it. And at the funeral, I realized that I had no relationship with Jesus Christ. I didn't know Him. I didn't know His Word. I didn't know His will for my life. And that's when I started searching. I started soul searching. And then I started realizing who I was. The Word of God started showing me who I was. And then I knew that I needed God.
Well, there are meetings all over town. And again, the website is tmewcf.org, the most excellent way. Christian Fellowship. If you can think of those words, then you can get the TMEWCF. Don't forget the .org. And one thing I noticed when I was researching the website is that Pensacola seems to have, even though this was started in California, it's worldwide, and there are really meetings all across the United States. Pensacola seems to have more meetings than anywhere else, numerically anyway. So this is a great, vibrant community for Most Excellent Way, but it also makes me think that this must be a community of great need. And let's talk to Tom Martin a little bit about what brought you to Most Excellent Way. I presume you had some problem with addiction.
Well, certainly, if you would like a brief testimony, I can give you that relatively quick.
Sure.
Around 12 or 13 is when I started with the alcohol and the marijuana, respectively, which I had a very disillusioned teenage years, and of course rebellious and this and that. Got into my 20s, and I wanted to go to college, but I had an idea. I had to impress my friends, or I didn't have any ideas of what my goals or dreams would be, and I had interests, of course, but I didn't realize what my interests were. So when I was studying, I wasn't studying what I was supposed to be doing. I didn't know it at the time. I was floundering through stuff, which meant I failed a lot, and a lot of that was spending times in sports bars, throwing darts, going to school in the morning, throw darts and get drunk in the afternoon, and then go to work for some ungodly reason, and then wondering why I kept losing my job every 2 years, and then going home in my 30s and just hooking up with old friends just sent me in a deeper exploring more drugs. That's when I got into the crack cocaine in my 30s and what have you, and that just progressed, and I was around 38 years old, and I realized I'm either going to stop or I'm going to die. That was it. It wasn't one day realizing this, but it was one day when I completely became desperate enough to reach out to somebody, and I called my brother, and he told me a couple days later to call this number, and I went to the first secular 28-day program, and that was back in '98, and I've been going through this, trying to search for validity and where's my purpose in life and all this good stuff since then. And like Eddie, I had an idea that, Jesus is right and true in anything, but I didn't have any personal contact with him. And I was afraid to walk into a church, just out of just complete fear that as soon as I walk in, they'd say, "Oh, that's a drug addict, alcoholic," and start stoning me. So I wasn't going to do that, you know.
But Most Excellent Way welcomed you. And usually, you know, you think of someone that's involved in crack cocaine. We've had a lot of people on the show who that really became their drug of choice for a while. One of our guests, a very eloquent speaker, was on crack cocaine for 18 years. And one would think that the thought on the mind of the crack cocaine user would be, where am I going to get my next rock? So we're going to explore that with Tom Martin right after this short break. Stay with us.
Where can you find a great deal on a car that's just right for you? Price Right Auto Sales, 6317 Old Palafox. Ask about our 90-day same as cash financing. Let's make a deal on your next set of wheels at Price Right Auto Sales. You'll find your ride at Palafox and Hancock. So come see us or call 479-9588. Price Right Auto Sales, 6317 Old Palafox, 479-9588.
If you own a business, take the best possible action. This TV station has recently expanded a successful format of local business programming, viewers, and coverage area by 400% with the push of a button. New lights, new cameras, and a new high-def studio. But our former local rate card is still unchanged. For a limited time, you can still lock in our old low prices. Call me and take advantage of the greatest show on earth for your company's fast track to growth. Television, online, on the air, on cable, your message will be everywhere. Your new customers look for advice. At your location, in our studio, or as a commercial sponsor of one of our long-running popular series, we've got the right package for your company at the right budget right now. Call 850-637-5574. 850-637-5574. I'm David Craig of Blue Lights, and I'd like to tell you about Jones Brothers. They do lawn care, land clearing, tree removal, and hauling. Jones Brothers does excellent work at competitive prices. Call Eddie Jones for an estimate or to talk about your land maintenance needs. It's Jones Brothers for lawn care, land clearing, tree removal, and hauling. 494-3018. They do lawn care, land clearing, tree removal, and hauling. David Craig, Eddie Jones, Tom Martin, Most Excellent Way, and we welcome your call if you want to, 432-7768. We were talking to Tom about how he had a little bit of an interest in crack cocaine, and I'm kind of wondering, okay, you decided that, you know, I'm either going to stop or I'm going to die, okay, and you had that awareness, but I'm sure you were still thinking, where's that next rock coming from, because you were addicted, isn't that true?
Bondage is a very deceptive thing, you know. Eddie mentioned the idea of waking up in the morning saying you'll never do this again, and then by 10:30, after you eat something and feel half alive again, by 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you're thinking about getting together with guys and going to the bar for happy hour, and even that, you say, I'm not going to smoke any crack tonight, and then you get 3.5 beers in, and yeah, next thing you know, you're looking for that next rock.
Or did you ever think, tell me if this is true, did you ever say, I am going to quit smoking crack as soon as my stash runs out? As soon as what I've got now runs out. Have you ever said that to yourself?
Only about 3,000 or 4,000 times.
Only about 3,000 or 4,000 times. Okay. I've heard that people will say things like that to themselves. That's where I got that idea.
They say things to themselves. They say it to each other. I've sat in rooms, 5 people sitting there going, "Yeah, this is the last time.
Right.
It's a demonic possession. There's no better way to describe it than something like that.
Okay, so you were possessed by demons, and you went to Most Excellent Way, at least in a alliterative sense.
Figurative speech.
Okay, figurative speech.
I don't want to get too theological on that aspect of it, but yeah, it is a bondage I can't let go. You know?
Right. Certainly, crack cocaine is a demon all itself.
Yes.
And so you started going to Most Excellent Way meetings. Did that happen first, or did something else happen first?
No, actually.
Did you ever have the joy of an interdiction with law enforcement?
A couple of times.
A couple of times?
A couple of times. But finding Most Excellent Way was the joy of breaking company policy and failing a urinalysis.
Oh.
The incident was I got hurt at work. Policy is you get hurt at work,
Right.
they stitch you up and have you do them the honor of filling a cup.
Mm-hmm.
I knew it was going to come back positive, you know. So I get home and I'm scared to death, and you know, I fell on my face before the Lord and said, "I'm done. You know, my life is yours, God." Those are basically my exact words. And the next day I go into work and I tell my boss, "The urinalysis is going to come back positive." I'm expecting him to say, "Okay, thank you, goodbye."
Mm-hmm.
But he didn't. Praise God. My boss and the owner of the company are both Christian men. And 2 days later, the owner of the company calls me in his office, looks me in the eye, and he says, "Jesus has a plan for your life, and you're missing it." And I knew right then that God was at work in this. You know, this, like I said, that was just a few years ago. But I've been trying to get away from that since back in '98.
Right.
And I've gone through several secular programs and even a year-long Christian program, but I wasn't sincerely surrendering myself to this. So anyway, so he didn't just say that and let me keep my job, but he laid out several qualifications. He put accountability in my path, is basically it. And one of them was to go to AA. I had experience with AA, and I wasn't real pleased with that, but I said, I'm going to have to do something. 2 months later, I'm sober, I'm doing okay, but I was a little nervous because, you know, you get that giddy feeling, hey, I've gone a week without smoking crack, you know, this must be working. 2 weeks in, you're like, oh, I'm about to rule the world. 2 months, you're like, oh my God, I'm going to fail somehow. Somebody, you know, it's like the floor is going to fall out from under you at any minute if you just slip on a piece of ice or something. And that's when somebody told me about Most Excellent Way. And I walked in there, and for a month I went to both. I went one night I'd go to Most Excellent Way, then I'd go to AA. And in the long run, I determined that Most Excellent Way was the way that I was going to be able to get out of that bondage.
Now, the black chip is something that you get when basically you've fallen off the wagon, and you know you're whatever your addiction is, you know, you're drinking again or smoking crack again, and I've asked some of the people on this set, you know, have you ever gotten a black check? And some of folks have said, like, you know, hundreds of them, right? So I mean, like a lot of black checks, but eventually, you know, they made it through to the other side. Did you ever get one of the black chips, rather?
Yes. Of course, I started out. They start you out with one. You know, it's like I'm coming in. It's just being honest before the group is what we call it. Stepping up and say, yes, I want my life to change. Welcome me in. And after a period of time, it goes from black to white at 30 days, and then it's 60 and 90, and then 6 months, and then 9 months. And by the way, the 9-month chip is the least handed out chip of all the chips. And then a year. But if someone through the process stumbles, falls, has a drink in their hand, gets discouraged for whatever reason, or somehow messes up and drinks, comes back to the meeting, we like to welcome them back, and then we give them another black chip. That's just a starting over point. That at times can be the hardest thing.
How long have you been clean and sober?
Today is 28 months.
28 months.
Do you believe that? I didn't realize that. When Eddie asked me that last month, he asked, how long you been clean and sober? And I says, I don't know, 26, 27 months. And then I was driving home last night. I go, wait a minute, tomorrow's going to be the 8th. Today's the 8th, right? And I go, wait a minute, that's, and I counted out, today's 28 months. So I was like, hallelujah.
So what would you say, Eddie, to somebody who says, you know, I hear this, and I'm watching the show, but I really like smoking crack, or I really like drinking, or I really like smoking pot, or I'm really enjoying doing a few lines of cocaine with my buddies, and, you know, I ain't ready for all that. What would you say to them?
There's not much I could say to them, to be honest to you. You know, it's something I think most people that come to the Most Excellent Way get to the bottom of the barrel, and they've found that nothing is trying to fill that empty void inside themselves. Nothing is working, and that when they finally come to the end of themselves and they realize that they're slowly but surely destroying themselves and the lives of others around them, then they can finally say, you know what, there's something about this homosexual or about Jesus. Basically, it comes down to Jesus. There's something about, trusting in Him and not depending on your own talents and your own abilities, and just totally surrendering. And that's the key. Humbling yourself and admitting that you have a problem. And until you admit that and take a good look at yourself and say, I need help, you're going to continue to enjoy it. And I just hope that you come to your senses and realize that you do have a problem before it's too late.
A lot of people will say, hey, I know how you feel. But when you go to a Most Excellent Way meeting, people really do know how you feel, right, Tom?
Oh, yeah.
Pretty much. Pretty much. You don't believe it when you walk in there and they say, we know how you feel. You go, you don't know how I feel. Because not only are we in bondage, but we're in denial, we're isolated, all closed up within ourselves. And when we open up and let loose, that's part of the surrendering to God, It's like you open up, you pour your life out to God. And it seems like a lot of people think, oh, I don't want to do that, that's too constraining. You got to fill out all these rules and what have you. It's more freeing than anything else.
Right, because, when you're clean and sober, when you're not in bondage to drugs, life becomes more real. Emotions are more real. Colors are more vibrant. So, hey, if you're feeling like you're at the bottom of the barrel, if you have the feeling that it's been down so long, it looks like it's up to you, Most Excellent Way. Thanks so much for watching.
Come see us.